isn't a sign that you're inadequate.
It's literal growth.
Yes. It's the physical sensation of your brain forming new neural pathways. The friction is the whole point.
Which totally shifts the paradigm.
It does. And that brings us directly to the third pillar, which is redefining how we view mistakes.
This is a big one.
We are so conditioned to see mistakes as threats to who we are, but the text argues we should treat them just as data acquisition.
Yes. I actually pulled a quote from the source that really nails this. It says, "Every successful person failed many times before they succeeded. The difference is they didn't quit."
It's so true.
And when you view failure through that lens of data acquisition, it reminds me of how, like, a machine learning model is trained.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right. Like an AI doesn't feel a crushing sense of shame when it accidentally identifies a cat as a toaster.
No, it doesn't need to go to therapy about it.
Exactly. It just adjusts the weights in its algorithm and runs the simulation again.
Yeah.
The failure is literally a requirement for the system to optimize.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it. A mistake is just the environment giving you feedback.
It's just telling the algorithm to adjust the variables.
Exactly. So by focusing on improvement, leaning into neuroplasticity, and treating failures as neutral data, you keep that thoughts to actions chain reaction moving. You don't let the system halt.
Okay, so that theoretical framework makes total logical sense. But let's ground this in reality for a second.
Let's do it.
Because theory is great when you're sitting in a quiet room reading a book. But it is so much harder to execute on, say, a chaotic Tuesday afternoon when you are chronically exhausted, your inbox is a disaster, and you have zero patience left.
That is the real challenge.
How do we actually keep that emergency brake disengaged when we're in the trenches of normal everyday life?
And this is where we pivot from cognitive theory to actual behavioral execution. Because a mindset isn't just a switch you flip once and forget about.
Right, it doesn't just stay on.
No, it's highly volatile. It requires daily reinforcement. So the source uses this behavioral economics principle. Small, consistent interventions completely bypass the brain's natural resistance to big changes.
So we aren't talking about, like, moving to the mountains and meditating for 10 hours a day.
Not at all. We are talking about micro habits, and the text outlines this 5-part regimen to protect that growth mindset.
Let's dissect these because they are incredibly practical when you look at the mechanics. The first one it really emphasizes is reading,
Yes.
but not like devouring massive textbooks. It specifically says 10 to 15 minutes a day. Why is that incredibly low threshold so important?
Because it deliberately undercuts your brain's avoidance of high-effort tasks. Like, if your goal is to read a whole chapter, your brain calculates the energy required and just says, hey, let's watch TV instead.
Right, it feels like too much work.
But 10 minutes. That offers almost zero cognitive friction. And developmentally, those 10 minutes interrupt your baseline thoughts.
You're feeding it new inputs.
Exactly. You're inputting new vocabulary, new frameworks, new ideas. You are actively supplying the thought side of that causality chain with high-grade fuel.
You're basically expanding the menu of options your brain has when it tries to predict what's going to happen.
Perfectly said.
Okay, so if the first habit's about upgrading the data coming in, the next one is about filtering out the noise. The source is huge on a strict media diet, especially limiting algorithmic social media.
This is crucial. Because social media algorithms are not neutral, they are optimized for attention.
Great.
And the most efficient way to grab human attention is through the amygdala, our threat detection center.
The panic button.
Exactly. So endless scrolling through outrage news, or even just heavily curated highlight reels, it forces your brain into a state of chronic comparison and perceived scarcity.
It's actively injecting that I'm not good enough narrative straight into your causality chain.
Yes. And if your baseline algorithm is overwhelmed by these artificial threats, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that handles long-term planning, it basically gets hijacked.
And you just freeze.
You enter total defensive paralysis.
Yeah.
So limiting that exposure isn't about hiding from reality. It's about protecting your cognitive bandwidth so you actually have the energy to do something meaningful.
Which leads right into the third habit, dealing with your physical environment.
Yeah.
Specifically, surrounding yourself with positive, growth-oriented people. Now, this sounds like really standard advice, but there's an actual evolutionary mechanism driving this, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. Humans are exceptionally social primates, and we are driven by mirror neurons.
Ear neurons, yeah.
We subconsciously mimic the emotional states, the vocabularies, and the behaviors of the people we spend the most time with. It's an evolutionary survival tactic syncing up with the tribe.
So if your tribe constantly complains, blames management, and just operates with a fixed mindset, your mirror neurons are quietly adopting that exact same operating system.
Precisely.
You literally start seeing the same invisible limits they see.
But the flip side is also true. If you embed yourself with people who view mistakes as data and who prioritize improvement, that resilient behavior becomes your new default setting.
You socially inherit their growth mindset. I love that.
It alters your entire baseline perception of what's normal.
Okay, so the fourth habit shifts back inward. The practice of mindfulness, specifically anchored in gratitude. And I have to admit, practicing gratitude usually triggers my skepticism. It can sound a bit hollow.
It sounds a bit cliche, sure.
Yeah, but reading the source, I realized it's not about ignoring the real flat tires of life. It's essentially a biohack for the reticular activating system, right?
That is exactly what it is. Your reticular activating system, or RAS, is this bundle of nerves at your brainstem, and it filters out unnecessary information so you don't get completely overwhelmed by everything around you.
It only lets through what you tell it is important.
Exactly.
It's like when you decide you want to buy a red car, and suddenly you see that exact red car everywhere on the highway.
Yes, the cars were always there, but your RAS was filtering them out until you made red car a priority.
So if your mindset is stuck in a negative loop, your RAS is just prioritizing evidence of obstacles and limits.
Right. But practicing deliberate gratitude, like writing down 3 specific things that worked out well today, it forces your RAS to change its filtering criteria.
You're training your brain to physically scan for opportunities instead of threats. You are literally reprogramming the search engine.
Exactly. And then the 5th and final habit bridges the mental and the physical, engaging in regular exercise.
And the source makes it really clear this isn't just about cardio health. It's critical for the mindset.
Because the mind and body operate as a single feedback loop. When you exercise, you are intentionally putting your body under physical stress.
You're elevating the heart rate, inducing fatigue.
But you're doing it voluntarily, with the knowledge that this controlled damage is going to result in strength.
It's the biological manifestation of the growth mindset.
Yes.
You're proving to your nervous system in real time that stepping into discomfort gives you a positive return.
You are training your brain to interpret the friction of effort not as a signal to quit, but as the literal precursor to growth.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. When you lay all 5 of these out, reading for 10 minutes, curating your social media, evaluating your circle, recalibrating your RAS with gratitude, and exercising, none of these require massive, heroic effort on any given day.
No, they're quite small.
But the aggregate effect is staggering. It actually makes me think of orbital mechanics.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, if you look at the Apollo missions to the moon, right? A tiny mid-course correction burn in low Earth orbit doesn't look like much. The spacecraft only shifts its trajectory by a fraction of a degree.
Okay, I'm tracking.
If you look out the window right after that burn, the stars look exactly the same. But because of the immense distance they have to travel, that tiny fraction of a degree determines whether they land perfectly in the Sea of Tranquility or if they miss the moon by 10,000 miles and drift off into deep space.
That is a phenomenal analogy, and that is the exact essence of why small changes every day create huge results over time.
You aren't trying to teleport overnight.
No, you're simply firing a small thruster to change the angle of your trajectory. And over the span of months and years, that new angle completely alters your reality. You are systematically rewriting the algorithm that determines how you respond to the world.
Okay, but let's bring this all back down to earth for a minute as we wrap up.
Let's do that.
If you're listening to this deep dive right now and you relate it to that opening scenario, sitting in the car, engine screaming, foot stuck on the brake, understanding all these mechanics can actually feel a bit heavy.
It can be a lot to take in.
Realizing that you are the architect of your own invisible limits is a lot to process. And the thought of changing your whole baseline algorithm might feel like, just another exhausting task on your to-do list.
Which, by the way, is an entirely predictable cognitive response. The brain looks at the whole scope of change and tries to hit the emergency brake again.
Right. This is too hard. Let's just stay here.
Exactly. And this is why the closing argument of the blueprint is so vital. The antidote to that sense of overwhelm is absolute minimalism. You do not need to overhaul your entire existence by tomorrow morning.
You really, really don't. You don't have to wake up at 4 a.m., run a half marathon, read a whole biography, and meditate for an hour.
Please don't do that. That is just a recipe for catastrophic burnout, which just feeds the failure loop.
Right. The objective is microscopic intervention. Just choose one small disruption to your algorithm today.
Read one page of a new book.
Unfollow one account that spikes your anxiety.
Take one deep breath and identify a single resource you have at your disposal right now.
You're just trying to prove to your nervous system that the trajectory can, in fact, be altered. You're just taking your foot off the brake for 1 second to see what it feels like to roll forward.
Exactly.
And the source offers a secondary piece of advice that we absolutely love to champion here. If unpacking these mechanics gave you a new perspective or helped you identify a limit you've been placing on yourself, share this knowledge.
Yes, send this deep dive to a friend or a colleague who you know is spinning their wheels.
Because the fastest way to improve your own social environment, that third habit we talked about, is to introduce these exact concepts to the people around you.
A rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Absolutely.
And as we conclude our analysis of the blueprint, I want to leave you with a final thought to examine on your own, tying back to the concept of those self-imposed boundaries.
What is it?
If it is demonstrably true that the limits in our lives are primarily constructed in our minds before they ever manifest in reality, and if it is true that a simple 10-minute shift in daily inputs can systematically rewrite the code of that mind, what seemingly impossible, immovable hurdle in your life right now is actually just an illusion, waiting for a minor adjustment in your trajectory to shatter it entirely.